We are going to move on to our special districts list of budget units. And we have Director Harder here with us and staff. And we are going to start on D338, page D338.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. I've got my Fiscal Deputy Administrator, Jesse Selmeron, here with me. And I guess we can get ready to dive right in. I really do like Under Sheriff Bingham's and Director DeLeon's approach yesterday, kind of high level. So I'm going to try and mirror that, not get into the details, because we've got 29 budget units, and I want to keep brevity in mind since we were requested to keep it to 10 minutes. So I don't know if I can.
Whoever requested that was thinking very well in advance, yes.
Yes. 10 minutes for 29 budget units. That's about 20 seconds a piece. So let's go. Like I mentioned, we have 29 budget units. Those are kind of broken down as follows. We've got 11, which represent 10 lighting districts. We have 4, which are for water districts, which we're in the process of working with the Auditor Controller's Office to close out. We have 1 for Spring Valley Campground, and then the remaining, I think that's 13, are for water and sewer districts that we manage throughout the county. So within those reserve types, we have 3 general types of reserves. I know you guys are looking at reserves and their functions and their balances as one of your points of emphasis this year. And what we see typically within our water and sewer districts, pardon me, are capacity reserves, capital reserves, and then O&M reserves. So capacity reserves are based on the capacity fees that people pay. So their hookup fees, those go into a specific reserve, and those are designated funds that can't be utilized for anything other than projects which expand the capacity to offset or mitigate their impact on the system. So those are pretty restricted. Capital reserves are, what they sound like. They're for capital type projects. And you usually want to keep enough in your capital reserve so that you can do unforeseen, large equipment replacements or repairs or large projects that may come up unanticipated. And then our O&M reserves are for operations and maintenance. And those, the rule of thumb, we like to see those between 25 and 50% for the reserve, so we have some cushion there if revenues don't come in as anticipated. We have a variety of levels of reserves within our funds. Some of the reserves are pretty low. Middletown's is pretty low currently, but when we adopted the rate study, we're heading in the right direction. So we are refunding those reserves. We're getting that district back in a healthy state. As you're aware, we were here Tuesday. We've got 4 rate studies currently underway. Those districts that were represented within those 4 rate studies, their reserves are probably not as healthy as they could be, but, we're heading in the right direction. Southeast collection system and treatment system, the reserves there are robust and healthy. That's, a fiscally sound district currently. We actually were increased, S&P upped our rating from an A- rating for that district to an A rating, so, we're doing well there. So there's a variety of conditions across our various districts. Vacancy rate, we currently have 50 positions, and we are looking to add 1 more. We're looking to add another electrical mechanical technician in this fiscal year, the upcoming budget year. We're sitting pretty good right now with vacancy rates. We're only at 10%, which is pretty good. We see a lot of cycling in that. We lose trained staff up the hill to the geysers and NCPA on a fairly regular basis. It's challenging to compete with someone who's a short commute away, but who pays 50 to 100% more than we are for similar type work. So when our staff graduates and gets up to a point where they're well trained, we do see them going. So that cycles. But as I said, vacancy rates right now are looking really good. We're only at 50 or 5, so we're 10% out of the 50 positions we have. A couple of highlights on things that we've got going on within our various districts. We just received notice earlier this week, our hazard mitigation grant program for our Soda Bay Water District. We've got the green light on that, so they're going to fund the replacement of the last 2 redwood tanks that we have in that district. A couple of weeks ago, we got the green light on our generator replacement program or generator augmentation. We're looking to buy 13 generators with hazard mitigation funding. So that's good news. We had them approve a scope of work. We moved one of the generators from one location in Kelseyville, from a well site to a sewer lift station. We've got portable ones we can roll to the well site, but the sewer lift station is more critical. So that required a scope of work amendment, but that was recently approved as well. Middletown, we are working there. We have the consultant under contract. We're wrapping that up for the finalization of the design to do the treatment plants improvements there. Southeast Regional, we got a lot going on in there. There's a lot of development in Clear Lake currently, so we're working collaboratively with them. When they're doing their road work, we're coming back behind and raising our manholes and our facilities to grade. There's a lot of development there. We talked about the Canocti Gardens project on Tuesday. That's moving forward. We have a plug number in there in our budget because we built the budget back in April for those mitigation improvements. That'll have to get adjusted before final budget because we're anticipating the estimate next week, so we'll adjust to reflect that. Northwest Regional, we're undergoing the rate study there. That's one of those that, you know, the reserves are in a pretty weak state. We're still operating, but we're operating on thin margins there. Spring Valley, a lot of work happening out in Spring Valley. EJ is probably aware of this. PG&E is going through there and just, they're undergrounding, reducing the fire risk.
You would say it.
I know, I can't, it's like I'm on camera, this is a public meeting, I'll bite my tongue. But it's challenging working with them sometimes, but we've got a meeting with them next week. Spring Valley was put in the late 1960s, 67. It was built with substandard materials at the time, and the maps that are from the era are not the best. So it's challenging not only for PG&E, but for us as well. So we don't know where a lot of the service lines are, and it appears that when they built that system, they ran service lines to every lot, even though they didn't set a meter. So there's a lot of service lines that are charged and under pressure that no one knows are there until PG&E finds it with their backhoe. So unfortunately, the customers out on Cache Creek Road right now, there's 34 houses, are under a continuous boil water notice. Because, you know, that's usually about a 3 or 4 day process. You know, if the water line breaks, we repair it, then we have to sample and test 2 days consecutively to make sure there's no bacteria. Within that time frame, PG&E usually strikes another service line. So we've just got a blanket boil water notice currently for Spring Valley. But in the long run, I think that'll be a great project out there. Like I said, they're doing a lot of undergrounding. They're really committed to repairing the roads when they're done. It took a lot of work to get there with them, but we are holding their feet to the fire on that. So we're going to get some new roads out there. Spring Valley is unusual in that we also maintain 13 centerline miles of road. In addition to the water district, we have the parks out there and the bridges as well. North Lakeport, we are working with DWR still on that drought funding, which will get us an extension to our intake. And so that's going to provide some reliability there and get us further out in the lake, out into cleaner and deeper water and better lake conditions so that when the lake is low, it's easier to treat. Part of that grant, it's about $1.5 million, also provides for the installation of a new water well. So we are working with DWR on that. We've got a consultant. I talked to Stephen about this earlier, but we're going to be engaging that consultant directly. We had put out an RFP, we were unsuccessful, and then the state said, hey, we've got consultants that are under a standing contract, we can get the design done for you. That's now problematic on their end, so we're going to go back to us working with that consultant directly. So there will be something coming before the board to approve us moving forward, given the challenges we had during the RFP process, and then the state's challenges in that we're going to look for an exemption to the RFP process since we've already been through it, but work with the consultant that's already started the process and hope to get your approval to move forward with that. That will hopefully get us, you know, that project completed, which gives us a little more reliability in the drought times. I think that's probably it for a high-level summary. If you guys want to dive into the details, I've got the details here. We can answer specific questions, but I don't want to ramble on and on.
Any comments, questions? Supervisor Green.
Yeah, I think it's just a housekeeping item, but at the bottom of page D 348 for Land's End Budget Unit 8351, I see under the goals for that, consolidation of Clear Lake Oaks and Clear Lake Keys. I don't think that's probably the right goal for Land's End.
Correct.
And then underneath that, if there was a copy and paste error in the goals, I'm not sure that the reserves are stated correctly.
The reserves are stated correctly. The copy and paste was from the previous, which was
Excellent.
what,
Okay, thank you.
261 or 250? Yeah, 250, I think, but yeah. I had noted that as well as I was prepping. It's like, oh,
Okay.
So I do have some questions for you regarding the capital asset list. You have quite a lot of big projects on that list, and some, I don't know about the number, but like, for example, in Kelseyville Waterworks, tertiary treatment plant, for the North Lakeport, you talked about it, the lake intake, Soda Bay, the water treatment plant improvement project, Middletown sewer update. Like, there's a lot of pretty big, large improvements. What kind of, are you still accumulating capital in order to be able to get those projects moving? Are they being designed? Or like, what is the status? And I've been asking this from a lot of different departments, that this is our 24-25 appropriations for capital asset list. If I start seeing it for multiple years, I start wondering, when exactly is this supposed to happen? Is it this year? And I'm going to be asking something of administration to see if we can get a better capital asset list for next year, to understand what's this year and what's just stuff that needs to be in the books that accumulates or helps us with getting funding or whatever the case might be, just so there's a very transparent list of expect these things to get done, not this whole entire laundry list of Christmas list.
yes.
So just kind of, if you can give us don't have to hit every single one of them, because you have a lot of different budgets to go through, but there's a lot of big increases and big projects that are on your list.
Yeah. Most of them are projects which are grant or loan funded, and we're in various phases of the grant approval process. Soda Bay, you mentioned Soda Bay, that's been on the books since 2016. We put in our grant application, SRF funding in 2016. That's for treatment plant improvements. It's $5 million. We've gone round and round and round and back and forth with the state, and we're working with them, but we haven't got to the point to where we've got the green light, the funding approval letter. Some of the larger ones in Southeast, for example, those are accumulations. So we're building reserves up, we're building it, and we've got that line item as a goal that we're working towards. Most of them, though, are grant funded, and we're in various phases of that grant approval process or the design process.
Okay. And then my last question is specific to Lake Hosan Southeast Regional System. I've noticed, at least, I believe, it's been there for at least 4 years, if not 5 now. Yeah, I see it here on the, I only went to 22, 23. But anyways, it's the infiltration. Obviously, that is an issue. One of the issues that was kind of highlighted in the whole Kanakrai Gardens sewer needs. And infiltration, it being from heavy rains, and atmospheric rivers are not your best friend when it comes to these kinds of situations. But I see that there's been like slight withdrawals from there. Not sure if the 1 point something million is spent each year, and it's a new accrual that's being spent each year on infiltration and inflow reduction. And my overall question, I guess, is with the spills that we've seen happen in that area, what is the timeline to have all those funds be utilized to kind of clog up the infiltration or try to limit as much as possible the infiltration? Or is it a very long timeline because, again, so many things have to be done in order to be able to use those funds?
It's kind of, with that particular one, it's kind of a two-phase approach. We've got some larger projects that we're working towards, and I expect it'll probably be construction next construction season, where we're looking at slip lining, some lines down there, and doing some major project work. That funding, though, also covers some of the targeted maintenance that our staff does. So they go out and do inflow and infiltration specific work on a regular basis. And typically they ramp up in the summer and they work really hard for 4 or 5 months where the weather is dry, flow levels are down. They get in there, they do acoustic inspections, they do line cleaning, they do root removals, they do spot patches and dig up and do spot repairs. So the funding there is kind of two-pronged. So we've got those little withdrawals that you're typically seeing in there. Those are covering their ongoing I&I work. The bigger projects, like I said, we anticipate those next summer.
Okay. And I know at one point there was a conversation about, for the lack of a better term, putting some sort of seal or an O-ring around the manholes. Have those, I think there was 700, or I forget how many there were in that region. Have all of those been done so that it helps with the infiltration right there at the manhole?
The high priority ones down in the low-lying Meadowbrook area are all done. Those are the 700 that are in. And that's an insert. So what you pull the manhole off and you'd look down in and you'd see the cone and then you'd see the channel down there with the sewage flowing through it. Right underneath the manhole is the frame that supports that round manhole. There's an insert that drops into that, and that's what those are. We call them a dog bowl, but it's a plastic insert that sets in there, and so that if water comes in through the manhole frame or through the pick hole, it gets captured in that bowl. And then once that bowl is full, it doesn't come in anymore, and it doesn't leak past it. So that works kind of one of those ongoing tasks. The high priorities in the Meadowbrook area have been done, but then when staff is out doing stuff, they put more in. I think we had 2,000 total, so I think we've got about 1,300 still.
Okay. And then I know it's been asked with multiple years, and I'm thankful that there hasn't been a CPI increase for, I think, the last 2 years on sewer due to the fact that your reserves have been good. With the note, I'm going to use that since you mentioned it, of now having an A rather than an A minus based on where you are at. Is there a plan to raise by CPI or keep it at the same rate for this year?
That's something we'd evaluate each year, and that typically happens in January. And I think we did raise it this year, correct? Yeah, we did raise it this January. So, but that's an annual evaluation that's taken into consideration.
I thought I'd check in on it.
Yep.
And will continue to check in on it. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
If there's, go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Sabati, for diving into the capital list. That reminded me at the tippy top on page 1, I was delighted to see a water line reference for South Main Street and Soda Bay Road. But I've been asking about that for about 1.5 years now. So I'm glad to see it on there as a capital project, but to my knowledge, we're not doing anything on it. So can you update me on that status for 63-04?
But I imagine Stephen can.
Yeah, that's actually with admin. If and when we can ever do that water project, it would be through special districts. We got quotes back probably 5 years ago now when Jan was the director. That is all up in the air during the annexation, et cetera. So right now it's there just in case it's not annexed and we need to provide water. That would be the county match through a special districts grant, but it's in limbo while all of the annexation, et cetera, is in limbo.
So there's real money behind that number?
There's cash sitting there, yes.
We should use that. Okay, we'll talk about that.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yeah, I know it's not in the budget, but I just wanted to check on the new light poles in Kelseyville with the lighting district.
Yeah, they've been ordered, and we've also been having some interesting discussions with PG&E.
It was the same laugh you had earlier when you mentioned PG&E.
PG&E makes me laugh like that. Yeah, but the new light poles have been ordered, so we're
That's the
waiting.
PG&E laugh.
I think they were 12 to 16 weeks out, so it'll be a while, but they have been ordered. The order has been placed. And we're working with PG&E. we're working with them on converting to LED out there in Kelseyville as well. We're looking to reduce operational costs. Hopefully, if we get the LED conversion through that district, that'll drop our operating costs about 20%. So, and then we're also trying to figure out which ones they're billing us as PG&E owned and maintained, and if those are PG&E owned and maintained, then you get out there and fix them. So, interesting discussions with them.
Okay. Did the discretionary transfer, did that happen yet?
I don't know if the transfer happened, but the lights have been ordered. I think it was going to get paid when they showed up and we got billed for it.
Okay. Thank you.
If you don't mind my asking, because I know you and I had a discussion, and I had a discussion with Supervisor Simon about some musical upgrades in the downtown Lower Lake. I know that Russ
Oh,
Kramer
yeah.
had approached me. And when I talked to you and PG&E, like basically we would have to buy new poles in order to have the electricity outlet on the poles to connect that. What's the cost
This
of
is
each
Lower
light?
Lake, correct?
What was that?
Lower Lake, correct?
Yes. What's the cost of a light that you're seeing for Kelseyville at this moment?
They're special. Like,
There's about 8,500 each.
Well, that doesn't quite cover
And
that.
the new light would only be one component of it. The larger challenge with Lower Lake is that they're currently on a PG&E owned and maintained rate, and so there isn't a separate circuit. So each light is tapped off of PG&E's power that's running throughout the town at that location. If we were to convert to having power outlets on the poles, that requires us to go to a metered rate, which means they have to all be on the same meter, which means we have to run all new circuits to the lights because they have to all be on the same meter. So that's the larger infrastructure implication, is that if we put the power on the poles, it has to be metered. If it has to be metered, then they have to all be on the same circuit, and they're currently not. They're just tapped into PG&E's lines where they are. So
Sounds like solar might be the...
solar would be a lot more doable.
I just thought I'd ask because I saw in the reserves that there's about 91,000, but at 8.5 for each one, that doesn't get you too many poles.
No.
Okay. Appreciate the information, and I see Vice Chair Crandall.
The lighting districts, I appreciate you giving those updates to the town halls. I know that in Upper Lake, they also had some concerns, and you took care of those, like, that worked out really well. And then there also was a situation with PG&E, but we got through it. And then in Clear Lake Oaks, of course, that's been a heavy topic and concern. It's in the LAFCO hands, from what I understand, and that's great. I'm glad. I just want to say that since last couple years, these two groups, at times, of course, CSA2 and Clear Lake Oaks at times can feel like, they feel a little uptight, right? But you're meeting with them a lot more. They're getting that out. There's a couple folks that come with things that aren't really pertaining to your department, like the other bridge, which I talked with Public Works about on the side for the new Long Valley Road to Old Long Valley.
Yeah,
That's not even in your peer review, but I know it gets brought up at those CSA meetings. And then the Lake Recovery Project, that Army Corps kind of put a stop to that, but was right in line with working with them. And so I just want to say that you've done a good job working with them. They're heavily scrutinizing the budget, and each time they've seemed satisfied with working with you all. So I want to say that you've done great with that group, in my opinion, and I want to thank you for that.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Nothing further. Let's open it up for public comment. No hands in Zoom, and no movement in the chamber. Bringing it back to the board for action.
Move to approve budget units 8210 through 8219, 8461, 8351, 8352, 8353, 8354, 8355, 8356, 8460, 8462, 8466, 8467, 8473, 8476, 8478, 8480, 8481, 8482, 8593, and 8695.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.